somebody said, you know what, I need to write my will. I haven't written my will. All of us around the table thought, yeah, that's actually a good point. And we went around the table. There were 15 people around the table. These were all professionals. They had families. They had good jobs, children, and not one single person around the table had written their will. So the legal industry is a slow-moving industry. We'd always be told, every time we spoke to lawyers at that time, we were told reasons why it can't work, reasons why it can't be done. And to this day, there are lawyers who will sit there and say, it can't be done. You can't do a will online. It's like, newsflash, millions of people have done it and done it successfully. So we are working in an industry that does have a reluctance to embrace new technology. So that worked in our favor.
Welcome to this week's episode of Akoni Tech Talks. We are joined by Tim today. It's a pleasure to have you here, Tim.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you for having me on. And
in true Akoni Tech Talks style, we're going back to the beginning to learn more about the moment you and Henry realized there was a gap in the market for simplified will creation. Now, tell us about that initial moment where you realized this was what you wanted to create.
We both worked in high tech. We worked for a large technology company in Canada. And we used to traditionally all go out for drinks on a Friday after work. It was a big group. It was our weekly tradition, routine. And then we were sitting there talking and somebody said, you know what, I need to write my will. I haven't written my will. And we were all of us around the table thought, yeah, that's actually a good point. And we went around the table. There were 15 people around the table. These were all professionals. They had families. They had good jobs, children, and not one single person around the table had written their will. Yet every single person around the table knew it was important and that they should have got it done. So immediately we're thinking, that's a broken system. Why are we all knowing it's important? One of the most important documents we'll ever write. We're all educated and we all know it's important, but nobody's got it done. So that was for us where the light bulb went off.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how did your background in e-commerce sort of shape your approach to founding LegalWills?
So I think it comes from two people with complementary skills coming together. So Henry is very much a tech guru, a tech person. I'm a business development person. We worked together at this company, Nortel. For your younger listeners, they may never have heard of Nortel. For your older listeners, it was an epic rise and fall of a tech giant. But we worked there and we worked together there. And I was on the business development side and Henry was on the technology side. So our skills complemented each other. And we're 25 years later, we're still working together. Not just our skills, but also our personalities really work well together. I'm a little bit more of an ideas-y dreamer, and Henry's very much we can do this. I know how we could solve this technically. So having two people come together like that, yes, we worked in technology, we worked in e-commerce, but it's always that synergy of a technology solution and a business application and being able to turn it into a product that people are prepared to pay for. And neither one without the other is ever going to work. You've got to have those two pieces. And we knew that we needed to have those two pieces come together.
Mm-hmm. And with LegalWills, it was among the first to offer that online estate planning in Canada. But what inspired you to take such an innovative technology first approach back in 2000? Because it was quite early to launch something like this, considering the way things have moved forward now.
Well, back in 2000, there was also a there was a dot-com boom going on in 2000. So there was definitely a movement at that time to put everything online. Like, see if you could solve this problem online. That happened in 2000. And there were some great successes and there were some epic failures of being able to transfer a bricks and mortar approach. And people were investing money into bricks, like transferring a bricks and mortar approach to being able to do things on the internet. So we weren't this was the birth of Amazon and eBay and, these services that at the time were like mind blowing. And as I say, they were epic. I remember the Super Bowl commercials back in 2000 were all .com companies.
Yeah.
And there was one that was like, we deliver pet food. And, you don't have to walk to your pet food store. I think it was pets.com. And they bought a Super Bowl commercial at that time, and it just didn't work as a business. And it failed dramatically. So it wasn't like we were the only people trying to put things online. But we happened to fall into an industry that was very, they're not technologically advanced. The legal industry is a slow moving industry. Yeah. So we would always be told, every time we spoke to lawyers at that time, we were told reasons why it can't work, reasons why it can't be done. And to this day, there are lawyers who will sit there and say, it can't be done. You can't do a will online. It's like, newsflash, millions of people have done it and done it successfully. So we are working in an industry that does have a reluctance to embrace new technology. So that worked in our favor.
Yeah. And as you say, you've even had people to this day sort of challenge that, or sort of say, it's not the way to do it. It can't be done. But were there any challenges in convincing people to trust online platforms like yourself for such sensitive tasks 20 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we were fortunate. So two things about our starter story were, firstly, we're bootstrapped, right? So we put in our own money, and then we also worked it as a kind of a side hustle while we were still working for the tech company, because quite frankly, our revenues coming in that first year were not enough to pay our bills. So we were able to be, timing to market is everything. It's critical. And if anything, we were ahead of the right time to go to market. So we were able to develop the services while we were still not in the main, we were not considered to be the most viable way to prepare your will back in 2000. And yes, there were definitely some challenges with people seeing a new paradigm. But thinking about it, there were some key milestones that helped over the 25 years. So other industries, like complementary industries, coming on board. So things like tax software came on board and became the de facto way to prepare your taxes. And we predated tax software, but now, certainly in North America, TurboTax, using H&R Block Online, Intuit, services like that, not many people now go into a bricks and mortar tax advisor to file their taxes. More and more people are going online. So having complementary industries moving online certainly helped. The other thing that helped was getting a major industry partner to partner with us. So we actually had, in Canada, we did have Intuit and H&R Block both partnered with us, and to be able to put their badge on our website to say, we have H&R Block who are now working with us, and having banks and building societies and credit unions and things like that starting to work with us is definitely, that helps. the next thing that really helps is, paradoxically, is having competition. Yeah. So having more people communicate to the world that this actually is a viable approach. When you're the only person doing something, and we were for the longest time, we were the only online will service provider, we're trying to go out there and convince everybody. So once other services came online and it became more accepted as an approach, that helped us tremendously. Yep. Then the next step after that is starting to get third-party reviews, Trustpilot reviews, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, people who have started to use your service. And it's always a challenge for a new business when they have 2 reviews and 3 reviews, right? And then like the third review that comes in is 2 stars. And it's like, oh, come on, give us a break. We're trying to establish something here. So now, we're in a position where, we have those partnerships. We have 5,000 Trustpilot reviews and thousands of Google reviews. So that kind of thing really helps. So it kind of builds momentum over time. So we're less about trying to establish our credibility at this point. And then the final step for us is, just as of like last year and a couple of years ago, we actually got law societies endorsing our product. So that finally, after a 25-year journey, you've got in Canada, the Law Society of Ontario. We have their stamp and seal on our homepage as endorsed by, the BC Law Society and things like that. So then you finally, it's like, whew, okay, now we've made it. Now we have that credibility and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, you kind of touched on, the way the journey of your software has evolved and the relationships and partnerships as part of that process. But your platform's evolved to offer advanced features as well, like LifeLocker, the Vault, and Keyholder options. But can you walk us through how these technologies work and how they've actually transformed estate planning?
So everything that we develop on our website are customer-driven requests. And I would strongly encourage anybody who is developing software as a service or any online service to never outsource your customer support. I think it's really important. I still see, as the founder CEO, I see every single customer request or customer complaint that comes in. And that drives all of our product development moving forward. So for those services, it wasn't necessarily so much our customers, but it was people who worked with family members who had a will and they can't find the will. So what do they do? And we're like, well, that's a missing part of the step. It's all very well to have your will, but you've got to then let people know that you have a will, and you can't hide it. You've got to make sure it's available to people without necessarily giving it to them, so they know, hang on a second, why am I only getting this in your will? Yeah. And so it's having that level of security and privacy, but also making it available to people. So that's when we developed things like the Vault and Keyholders, where keyholders can log in and access the documents after you've passed away, but not before. And then we were driven by people saying, look, I'm the executor to my brother-in-law's estate. I have no idea what he owns. I don't know anything about his bank accounts or his online accounts or his assets. What am I supposed to do? And it used to be back in our parents and our grandparents who would have maybe 1 or 2 bank accounts, their current account, their savings account, and with one bank. Now we have dozens of banks and investments, and we're not getting a monthly statement put through the mailbox once a month. It's all online, so if people can't access your email, or your computer or your devices, they have no idea what your estate is made up of. So we developed a product called LifeLocker, where you can keep an ongoing inventory of everything that you own, people to contact, subscriptions that are going to need canceling. So it becomes like a handbook for your executor. And again, that was driven by people contacting us saying, I'm the executor, I don't even know where to start. So we wanted to do more than just what a lawyer or a solicitor would do, is say, you've come into the office, you've written your will, here's your 4 sheets of paper, goodbye, that cost you £600. We felt that we wanted to have a relationship, engagement with the customers, not just when they prepare their will, but also with their executor, and providing tools to really complete that full circle of the service, from writing your will to actually getting it completed and your estate taken care of.
And mirror wills are one of your standout services. Can you explain how this feature leverages technology to simplify the process for couples?
Yeah, so with all of our services, and when I look at the competitive landscape as well, and this applies, I think, to any software as a service, you're always trying to walk that line between the speed and convenience and the completeness of what you offer. And in our industry, there's certainly a movement towards speed. I mean, there's a company that has been around for a long time that offer wills called 10-minute will. You can do it in 10 minutes, 10-minute will. And then quite hilariously, a while ago, this company came out with 9-minute will. Right, so we're the 9-minute will, and it's like, whoa, this is not a race to like I can do your will in 4 minutes. So we're not trying to be the fastest. We're trying to make that balance between the fast, most convenient, but also the most complete. So we look to ways to make it more convenient without sacrificing the completeness of our service. And the mirror will was one area that we felt that we could really provide some shortcuts when somebody sat there and they've typed out their children's names and their grandchildren's names and their dates of birth, and then they start on their spouse and partner's will. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? I've got to write all of this stuff again. So we put this tool in place where you can just say, I want this to move over to my spouse's will. This page, this page, this page, this page, move that over. I'm naming my spouse as the executor. They're going to name me as their executor. So we look to ways of trying to streamline the process of creating the second will without sacrificing any of the completeness of the service. So that was one area that we thought we could speed things up a little bit for people.
And with these sort of technical solutions, what have been some of the unique challenges you faced in designing them?
I think so that is definitely one, like trying to draw that balance. Like when a customer comes to us and says, you know what, it would be really cool if you do this. And then we think, you know what, this is the first time we've been asked this in 25 years. Like, so, and it kind of makes sense. So do we do it or do we not do it? And if we do this, is it going to complicate it for everybody else? Because we're giving this person an option that makes sense to them, but for most people, it may be too complicated. I think for wills, there's one particular thing. When you go to distribute your assets, you say, I want to leave everything to my spouse. But if my spouse predeceases me, I'm going to leave everything to my 2 children. But if one of those children was to predecease me, then I want their share to maybe go to a charity, or half to a charity and half to the other kid. It's like, whoa, hang on a second. This is getting really complicated. It's like, well, what happens if that person? And so you can really get into the person using the service, although somebody may have come to us and said, I need to have a different distribution plan if my spouse and my first child doesn't survive me. It's like, yeah, but this is going to complicate it for everybody now. And trying to get that balance right is one of our toughest challenges, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's concerned about, say, the safety element of storing their estate documents online?
I think that you can firstly look at the credibility and credentials of the service that you're using.
Yeah.
I do think that it's challenging now for any company to just launch a will service.
Yeah.
We have a will service, go for it, right? So I think that we have got some credibility there. Data security is first and foremost for us, is the most important thing for us. We don't store any data as plain text. It's just we use a distributed network. There's no meaningful information stored in any one database directory. I think the other thing that we do, which is important, and it's important when you're looking to use a company, is where are the employees? Are they actual employees of the company? What is outsourced in that company? Is the software development done in-house? Is the customer support done in-house? There's some questions that you can ask of a company that you're going to work with. And also there should be an option whenever you work with any company to completely remove your information. And there's been strides in legislation to make sure that people, GDPR or, there's requests for data to be removed and make sure that a company complies with those things. But I think ultimately you also have to weigh up pros and cons. And for example, storing a will online, and there's law changes in the UK that are now assessing electronic signing and storage of wills, and the concerns around electronic storage of wills and whether that's a safe thing to do. But I think you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. And to me, electronically signing a document is far more secure than scrawling an ink signature on a document.
Yeah.
That does not mean me. In 2025, me going blah, 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 is not my fingerprint. And storing it on a piece of paper when you could have a house fire or a flood or any of these things, a piece of paper worked when the law came out in 1850, but now it doesn't make sense as the most secure place to store a document. Not to mention what we talked about previously, is like, I don't even know where this thing is. And it turned out it was under the floorboards. Nobody knew, right? So there are things that you can provide. And if you look at the pros and cons, there's more pros to using technology than there are cons. Some technology.
Yeah. And what's your vision for the future of estate planning? How do you see legal wills continuing to shape, the industry, which has actually stayed relatively dated in its kind of technical evolution?
Yeah, so electronic signing and storage of documents is going to be coming. It's coming, slowly. When we started LegalWills back in 2000, we thought digital signatures is going to be the way forward. Yeah. And it didn't happen for 25 years. And so in Canada, one province, British Columbia, they allow it. In the US, there's a couple of states, Nevada, Utah, and the UK, as I say, they're going to have another meeting about it, I think in April, to talk about whether that's the way forward. COVID changed things. They allowed remote signing of documents, so you could sign something over a Zoom call. But then, strangely, after COVID, a lot of jurisdictions rolled that back and wouldn't allow it anymore. So there are some things, there will be advances in electronic signing and storage, but the obvious technical innovation is AI. And AI is going to massively change the legal landscape over the next 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely. And what advice would you give someone who's maybe hesitant to start their will today?
I would say the most important thing is writing your will is nothing to do with you. It doesn't benefit you in any way. It benefits everybody that you leave behind. So if you have a family or loved ones or care about anybody in particular, then not writing your will is never a plan. You never have a plan to you know what, I've decided to not write my will. That's not a
Yeah.
plan. That's just negligence on your part. And the difference, most of the people, a good number of people who come and use our service are people who say, my parent just died without a will, and I'm never going to put my family through what we've just been through.
Yeah.
So understanding the anguish, trauma, and difficulties that you are leaving people with when you decide not to write a will, if you can picture that, then you should think about writing your will. If you do anything caring for people in real life, in your lifetime, just do this one thing, and it really is not that difficult.
Yeah. And if you could leave our listeners with one tip about using technology to simplify their estate planning, what would it be?
Try it,
Yeah.
get started.
Hmm.
Using a service like ours or any online will writing service, you can usually just try it without commitment. You could even try it, like even using our service, you can try it and put in random names. Just get a feel for whether this thing works for you.
Yeah.
And you'll likely be surprised that it's a lot less intimidating. In fact, our services, online services, are definitely less intimidating than walking into a solicitor's office where you think, I haven't prepared for this. I don't know what they're going to ask me. You can sit in your pajamas on your sofa, click, get started, and you don't even have to finish it in one sitting. As soon as it asks you a question like, who's going to be the guardians of your children? Like, whoa, I haven't given that any thought. Let me pause here. I'm going to save my work, talk to a few people, and come back to it. So my tip would be try it, get started, and it might not be as bad as you think.
Definitely. And we come on to the trending in tech round. So speaking of AI, let's talk about AI in probate services. Now, a Manchester-based legal startup has launched a fixed fee probate service powered by AI to expedite and simplify estate management, demonstrating AI's potential to enhance efficiency in legal services. Now, how do you see AI transforming the broader estate planning and probate landscape? And what safeguards do you think are necessary, to ensure that accuracy, transparency, and fairness when it comes to such a sort of sensitive legal process?
So how I see it evolving is this industry moves so fast, so fast. And I've spoken about AI to a couple of people, and even if you take one of my quotes from 2 months ago, it's woefully out of date. And even like today, I saw somebody sent me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sesame.com, but it's conversational AI. It just moves it one step further. I suggest that anybody goes to their demo at sesame.com. That is going to be the where AI is going to really play a role in the broader legal estate planning landscape, because you're going to be able to have a natural conversation that asks questions about your will and any other legal services. And I think we also have to keep in mind that with solicitors, they're not all experts in everything. And there's a real danger of, and whenever you read an article about a solicitor making a mess of a will or making a mess of any kind of estate planning, it's usually because they specialize in house transactions, and somebody asked them to write a will and they'd never really written a will before, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I went to see a solicitor so I know my will's good. So AI can actually have a broader knowledge base. It can definitely have a broader knowledge base. It may not have authority within a specific niche that a lawyer can have. So where it's going to really play is front-ending a legal service. So a lawyer saying, you know what, talk to the AI first, and then that AI will be able to summarize your conversation, and then I'll be able to work as the second tier. And I think that's where it's really going to win. But having natural conversations, and even if you need it, a little avatar on the screen, and you're going to say, I need to write my will. Hey, great. Are you married? Yes. Do you have children? Yes, I have 2, Billy Bob and Johnny. Right. And okay, talk through it as if you would if you were talking to a lawyer. And it's going to cost nothing. And it's going to really change the legal landscape. But in terms of safeguards for accuracy and transparency and fairness, and it's bigger than me. I'm not sure I can answer those questions, right? There are people who are going to have to, and whether it's governments or some kind of legal boundaries or something, because at the moment there is nothing stopping somebody putting an AI avatar on a website and claiming that this AI avatar can write your will. There is absolutely nothing stopping doing that. So maybe it's going to need some kind of legal intervention to just put some guardrails in there.
Definitely. Now we come on to the final part of the podcast, which is the this or that round, where we get you to pick your tech favorites. So, Tim, if you had to pick iPhone or Samsung?
I'm Samsung, but going back to the beginning of our story, Henry, our tech guy, is iPhone. I have an Apple computer. He has a PC, so we're like the odd couple. But yes, I'm Samsung.
And are you a Spotify or Apple person?
I use Spotify now, but only primarily, because I have a family. I have young children. Well, not young children. I have 2 teenage daughters. And we use Spotify around the house, which really messes up my end of year summary, like my year in Spotify. But we use it as a family account on Spotify around the house.
Nice. And Netflix or cinema?
I would cinema. I find that Netflix, to me personally, I don't feel that Netflix is coming up with new stuff often enough. Yeah. And I like the full immersion experience.
Absolutely. And laptops or tablets?
Okay, I think with this one, I'm going to go a little bit left field. I think what I'm going to get next is a foldable smartphone, which is kind of tablet-y. I like tablets, but these foldable smartphones are just getting better and better and better. I haven't had one yet, but I think that's where I'm going to go. I know Huawei make them. Oppo has an amazing one. So, yeah, foldable smartphone.
Nice. And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
ChatGPT.
And video calls or voice notes?
Kind of both. Video call with an AI transcription. AI transcriptions of video calls are just once again AI. It's but yes, the transcriptions of video calls are just killer.
Yeah. And finally, Tim, if you could bring back one piece of tech that's either now evolved or it no longer exists, what would it be and why?
I've got 2.
Oh, okay.
My iPod Classic, which I still use to this day, is 160 gig of my music collection. No internet connection whatsoever. Yes. I love this. And when they said it was going to go, they were going to stop doing it, I couldn't believe it. It was like the greatest piece of tech ever done. Yeah. And people say, well, you can put all of that on your phone, but it's different. I love this. and I still use it. It's still on my desk.
Yeah.
And part of this, my number two, the headphone jack. I love the headphone jack.
Ah.
So, and my phone doesn't have one. And if I was going to bring one thing back, people would say, "Hey, you just plug your headphones directly into the device, and there's no cracking and popping and pairing and disconnections." Like, oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Headphone jack.
I love that. You're our first guest to actually physically have the item as well. So
and it's an iPod with a headphone jack. It has both.
I actually feel very nostalgic seeing that now. I wish I'd kept mine. But that brings us to the end of this week's episode, Tim. It's been so lovely chatting with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed your questions. They were great questions.